Hi everyone, happy Friday to everyone. This is Daniel Eigenmann for the Daniel Eigenmann Finance Broker Forum. Today I want to talk about settlement. Obviously it is something, it's actually the last stage in the purchase of your house. You need to get yourself ready with your finance, you need to find a house, and then you need to finalize the finance, and then the last step before you can get the keys handed over is settlement. And I get a lot of questions about settlement. People are not sure what it is. What does the settlement agent do? How much does it cost? What can you do to avoid any issues at settlement to make sure you get into your house as quickly as you can? And instead of me giving you all the answers, which by the way I don't have all the answers, I thought I'd ask Rebecca Womack of D'Angelo Legal to answer all our questions about settlement agents. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you very much. Thank you. I know it's, I'm really happy that you're here and you can answer all our questions, hopefully.
Yeah.
So what I want to do, I want to ask you about, first of all, settlement agents.
Okay.
What does a settlement agent actually do?
Yeah. Well, basically, it's the transfer of ownership of property from one person to another.
Okay.
So it can be linked to a sale or a purchase. It can be a transfer of ownership between related parties. It can be transfer of ownership of a property to a trust if you need to do anything like that. It could be a deceased estate pursuant to court orders. So basically, anything that involves a property being transferred to someone else.
All right, okay. So that's not just when you buy a property, but if you want to add something, if you want to add someone to...
yeah, you can add someone.
As well? Or if there's a divorce, take one off?
Yes.
As soon as we're talking about transferring the title or changing the ownership on the title, we should talk to a settlement agent.
Yes, definitely.
So what happens what happens if I'm building a house?
If you're building a house, the first step of it would be that you actually buy a block of land.
Okay.
That's where your settlement agent would come into play. They would settle the land. Once the land is yours, then you liaise with the builder to build and construct the home on the land.
Okay, all right, okay. But let's say I've already have the land and now I want to build. I don't really need to talk about it.
No, you don't. You don't need a conveyancer unless, for example, that you wanted to add someone to the land before you apply for.
Okay, but if the client has any questions as to whether they need a settlement agent or not, they can always call. No, they can call you.
Yes.
You're not going to charge them to tell them whether they need your services or not, but they can ask you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of those things as well. Every time you hear lawyers, you hear legal fees, so they were always like, how much are they going to charge me in 6 minutes increments or 12 minutes increments? So they can they can call you, and by the way, we'll give all of Rebecca's details at the end. They can call you and ask you questions to make sure that they do the right thing. What about refinancing then?
If it's a refinance, again, if there's no exchange of property between people, and it's just literally the bank, then a settlement agent doesn't need to be involved.
Because you're not changing titles or anything on the title. So that's
right.
pretty much, if there's anything title related, talk to a settlement agent. If it's not, you don't have to.
No.
If you're not sure, call the settlement agent. That's right, exactly right. Or you can call me. So at what stage would you ideally appoint a settlement agent? Because I get people to come to me and say, I've just had my offer accepted, and I've put, on the second page of your offer, I actually ask you for reference to a settlement agent, and I see a lot of to be confirmed.
Yes.
So you can actually you can make an offer without having a settlement agent. But what is ideal?
Ideally, especially if you're buying, I would definitely say appoint an agent before you even put in an offer. Your settlement agent can give you advice as to what conditions that you specifically need on your contract.
Okay.
It may not just be finance, it's other things that you need to think about, which you probably won't think about at the time of making the offer.
And it could be title related, it could be property related conditions.
Yes, yeah.
Not having a look at the title, whether there's any encumbrances on the title or anything that should be aware of. Because I guess what I see is, especially if it's your first house and it's for yourself to live in, you tend to be quite emotional about the purchase. You know how that happens. So you walk into the house and say, I want that house, whatever it takes, and you just sign on the dotted line. I think it's time to, it's a good idea to take a breath, to really think about the property, the purchase, and if you got any doubts about conditions, titles, again, talk to a settlement agent.
Yeah,
now the settlement agents, talking about approaching a settlement agent early. Yes, you can give them advice, but you really they only get charged at the end, isn't it?
That's right.
Right,
yes,
okay.
yeah.
So it costs nothing to ask you a couple of questions?
No.
Good.
No. If they want help with writing the contract.
Okay, what conditions or things like that?
Yeah, we can actually help with that as well.
And I think, just quickly, I think that's important because your offer is actually a contract, isn't it? So it's a legal contract.
It is, yes.
So when you put conditions in, and when it's more than just, hey, structural inspection and pest inspections,
Yeah.
if you believe that your offer needs more conditions, there's a right way to write the condition.
That's exactly right.
And the wrong way.
Yes.
Because as you know, any clause, any legal clause can be interpreted in many different ways. I'm not a lawyer. Most people buying properties are not lawyers, so it's a good idea to have a chat to you. Make sure that the condition that you want is in the contract, but it's also written the right way to protect you. At the end of the day, you work for the buyer,
Yes.
so you want to protect them.
Yes.
Having said that, if I'm selling a property, do I need a settlement agent as well?
You do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Either whether you're selling or buying, I would definitely recommend to appoint an agent.
So when you say recommend, does that mean that I don't have to have a settlement agent? Can I do it myself?
You can do it yourself. I honestly wouldn't recommend it. At the end of the day, property is probably one of the most expensive things that you're going to buy in your life.
Yeah, true.
Why would you not want someone to make sure that everything is correct? If you do it yourself, there's possibilities of missing something. Once your settlement's gone through, there's no going back.
All right, okay. Oh, no going back at all, or very expensive?
Well,
No
no
going
going
back. Okay, cool. All right. So obviously, what you're saying is
It could become very expensive if you've missed something.
That's right. And compared to what a typical agent would, let's talk about how much you would expect to pay a settlement agent.
Yeah,
They are like like any industry, you've got the ones that are promoting themselves on price and are saying they're very cheap. Should you go with the cheapest one? How much would I expect to pay my settlement agent?
Approximately, it does depend upon the sale and purchase price.
So the price is a big factor?
It is, yes,
Okay.
yeah. But for a sale, you're probably looking in the region of about $600 to $1,000 for the fee.
Okay.
For a purchase, it is more, probably in a region of about $900 to $1,800. It does vary.
Why is it more?
There's probably a lot more work to do involved
Okay.
with the purchase. Obviously, the risk is with the buyer. They are going to be the new owner of that property, so there's a lot more inquiries in relation to
Whereas
that.
the seller, once it's sold, they're gone.
Yeah, pretty
Now,
much.
you said there's a bit more work involved when purchasing. What exactly do you do? In terms, I know you check the contract, but what else? What does the settlement agent actually do?
Yeah. Basically, our involvement is the transaction of the money, so we have to make sure that everything is correct. We adjust rates and taxes, so we make sure that the seller leaves no arrears. We check the contract for conditions and due dates, make sure that those due dates are put in our diary to make sure that you achieve that due date. If we need to arrange a variation to the contract, if you think you're going to struggle meeting a due date, we can help with that.
Like what if you need to postpone the settlement date?
Yes, yeah.
Or if you need to bring it forward, which you can?
Yeah.
I mean, there's flexibility, isn't it? I mean, I see clients that put in a particular date in the contract as to when it settles, and they're finding that I'm getting their finance a lot faster, and they're ready to move in faster. They can always ask whether a variation can be done. You can always ask a question, isn't it? The worst thing that can happen is that you get a no, but you might get a yes.
That's right.
So if the seller agrees to, let's say, an earlier settlement or a later settlement, that needs to be put in writing, isn't it? So it's a variation to the contract. It's very simple to do, but both parties, the buyer and the seller, has to agree.
That's right.
Yeah? So they basically get that done through you.
Yep,
You
we can
liaise
do
with the
that.
agent, and you just get the right signatures, and it's all done, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So that's what you do. Cool. Now, do you need? If I buy a property, let's say I'm based in Karratha. I buy a property. I live in Karratha. I work in Karratha. I want to buy in Karratha. Do I need to appoint a settlement agent based in Karratha?
No, you don't. If it's a manual settlement, it actually takes place in the CBD anyway.
Okay. All right. So
whether you're based in Karratha or whether you're based in West Perth, it makes no difference. Settlement usually happens within the CBD, unless of course you settle electronically.
All right. We'll talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
Now, sorry, I forgot to tell you guys, what we're talking about here is really relating to WA, because there are differences in contracts, how contracts are drawn, exchanged. Some of those are a bit different from one state to the other. The eastern states, actually, I think every state has a different way of doing it.
They do, yes.
I think here in Perth, we're quite lucky, in WA, sorry, we're quite lucky. We have a fairly simple offer and acceptance, process or method.
Yes.
No, you make an offer, it's either accepted or counter-offered, and at the end of the day, when your seller has signed on the back page, that's where the offer has been accepted.
That's right.
I think in Sydney, for example, you've got an exchange contract. I had a chat to a good friend of mine who lived in Sydney, and he was flabbergasted by how simple it is here. Okay.
Yeah.
So really, remember, what we're talking about here is really relating to WA. If you've got any questions about, let's say you want to buy an investment property over east, they can still talk to you and say what's involved.
We could maybe give a little bit of advice or point them in the right direction,
All right, okay.
but we wouldn't be able
You
to
wouldn't
do
be,
the
okay, cool.
comprehensive
All right, so in this
analysis.
particular case, if you're buying over east,
Yes.
it's a good idea to appoint a settlement agent in the right state.
Within the state, yes.
Because I think what I get from talking to you and my experience is that the settlement agent, settlement is a final stage, but it's also a vital stage. A lot of things can go wrong, all right? And let's talk about that now. Let's talk about the settlement process itself.
Yeah.
What can a buyer do to ensure that a settlement goes smoothly? Because at the end of the day, that's what you want. You buy a property, you're falling in love, you want to move in, you want to make sure it happens smoothly. So what can I do as a buyer to make sure it happens smoothly?
The main thing to do is to make sure that you are aware of when your conditions are due. So, and you need to make sure that you put realistic timeframes on your conditions on your contract. So for example, usually it's like 21 or 28 days to receive your finance approval.
Okay.
And then approximately maybe 21, 28 days for your settlement to occur once you've got your finance approval. Just gives you your lender time to process your paperwork, get you to sign your paperwork, your settlement documents, send them back, and make sure everything's in place in time for settlement so that you're not stuck with any delays. And
it's the same with, if you've got pest inspection or structural inspection, make sure you understand when these are due. I just had a client where we were about a week away from settling, and he thought he's going to call the selling agent to organise the structural inspection. That was too late, so he missed it.
Yeah.
All right, so don't do that. Understand what your deadlines are. So you've got finance deadline, you've got settlement deadlines, but you also have your inspection deadlines or conditions, other additional conditions. Yeah, so obviously you're there on top of them. That and say, I remind you, you've got these deadlines coming.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you look at your contract and say, okay, how many conditions, which ones are ticked, which ones are met, blah, 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 blah. When everything's met, you're ready to settle.
That's right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What happens if, for whatever reason, the buyer or the seller is not ready on that day, on the settlement day? What happens
usually,
there?
On a standard contract, you usually get 3 working days grace. So each party gets 3 working days grace.
That's 3 working days, not calendar days, working days. So, for example, if you settle on Friday and they're not ready, so you've got what? Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, okay, cool.
If you're not ready within those 3 days, the party who is ready may charge penalties to the party who can't settle.
So it could be either the buyer who charges penalties to the seller, or the seller charges penalties to the buyer. Whoever's not ready.
Yeah, that's right.
So is that automatically? Does that happen automatically, or?
It doesn't happen automatically. It's basically put in there to protect the person that is ready. It's to basically compensate for any loss. For example, if you're a buyer, you may have like removal trucks booked. What happens, if you've got to cancel them, is there going to be cost involved with that?
Yeah, okay.
So it's a way of compensation.
Okay, I see.
You don't have to charge those penalties, but it is there to protect the person who is ready.
And does that happen often?
Occasionally.
Occasionally. I mean, I've had situations where we were like 3 weeks late. But the buyers and the sellers were agreeable to each other, understood that the reason why they were late was really out of the other party's control. And I think that's important too. It's to understand why you're late. And we just talked about what you can do to make sure that everything happens smoothly, to be there on time, make sure you've done everything that's under your control. I mean, for example, I see as a finance broker, and you would know that as well, for me, my job doesn't stop when you've been unconditionally approved and your loans documents have been returned. My job really never ends, but really I'm pretty much with the buyer all the way to settlement, making sure I will call the bank to make sure the funds are in the right place, that the bank has the right authority to draw the funds, or if they are with in your trust account, they are there, and the right amount is also available. You need to remember that the right amount that you will need to contribute will be affected by what you guys do, the council rates and all these things come into play as well. So you might, I will give you an idea of how much is required, but you might find that you need to pitch in a little bit more or a bit less, depending on what you find.
That is right,
okay,
yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what would you say are the most common reasons for missing settlements?
There may be a problem at final inspection. We always recommend that you do your final inspection at least a week prior to
A week before, not just the day before.
No,
a week before.
7
days before, remember that?
Yeah. There may be issues with the loan documents. They may have signed something incorrectly. Always make sure that you use your full legal signatures on everything.
That is very, very. I know. I'm doing one right now, and the female client, has 5
Different
middle names. 5 middle names, and remember, you need to have the same name all across your paperwork.
That's right.
It's important that the title Landgate has the right name, the full name, so they can identify you.
Yeah.
And make sure you write it the same way all the time. If you're from Malaysia, for example, I know that your official documents, the passport puts your last name first and your first name last, whereas if you've got a driver's license, the other way around.
Yeah.
So it's very important. When you sign your document, when you sign your offer and acceptance, if there's any doubt, underline your last name.
That's
very
right.
important.
Yes.
But what you're saying is, my experience is that use your full name all across. It starts with when you make an offer.
Yes.
Use your full names. When I do your finance, or when you're finance work, or when you go to the bank, make sure you use your full names, and all the documents have your full names. And then obviously with you as well, have all the full names.
Yeah, definitely.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
And what else? What other reasons?
There may be issues where, like you said, the funds may be in the wrong account.
Okay, yep.
You know, that we may have a shortfall.
Or not enough, and that could be what, 1 cent?
Maybe, well...
Could you delay for 1 or for 5 cents?
We will probably just reduce our fee by that.
Take it out of your pocket.
Yeah.
It could be a few dollars or a couple of $100.
That's right.
And then okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So it could be anything like that. You know, when you actually attend settlement, there may be an issue with a document there, what's not being picked up. There may be a problem with a bank check which is handed over. If you're doing a manual settlement.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So wrong
lots
signature.
Of things.
That's the other thing as well. No, I said to you, have the same name with full names all across your documents, the same with the signature.
Yeah, that's
because the
definitely
bank will get a specimen, a signature specimen. Make sure it's the same signature
the
across.
whole way through.
I had an issue where a client had a hyphen. She sometimes used a hyphened last name, sometimes used a hyphen, sometimes didn't.
Yeah.
That was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Just a hyphen. A hyphen can be a nightmare, so that's another reason. So consistency of names. Make sure that the funds are the right amount of funds are available in the right place. That the banks have the right authority to draw on it.
Yes.
If you're not sure, have the funds transferred into your settlement agent's trust account.
Yeah.
All right.
We can do that.
Any other major thing that?
Basically just making sure that you return all your documentation as well as quickly as you can.
In time as well.
Yeah.
In time.
You find some people either, you know, they get their envelopes full of the documents and then leave it for a few days.
Yeah.
You know,
Do it right away. Do it now.
Yeah.
There's no time like today, I guess. Beautiful. Now I think that's great. Gives us a really good understanding of what you guys do, why we should pay you the small fees.
Yeah.
Coming back quickly, when you're looking for a settlement agent, I would recommend talk to at least 2. Yeah?
You can get quotes from different
You can get
agents.
quotes, yeah? And those quotes are reliable?
Well, once they've given you a quote, they usually
All
stick
right.
to that
Okay,
quote.
good. Okay, cool.
But I would usually probably recommend someone who's either been referred to you by a friend who you know has gone through the same thing that you're going through, or someone who's been referred to you, or someone who you trust.
But let's say you don't have that situation. It's really about talk to. I would say at least 2, so you can compare one with the other. Get a quote, you know, if that's what you want. Actually, probably a good idea. But also see how comfortable you are with the person, because the person is going to guide you through the whole process. You want to be comfortable with that person. Not see how they communicate with you.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, it's like in my business, communication is so important. Be on top of it. Let the clients know. Manage expectations as well. If anything happens, you're on top of it. You're there to help. You're solution orientated.
Yeah.
United their ways, etc. So that's quite important, isn't it?
Yes.
Now let's talk about the future.
Yeah.
The future is online, and this is why I do all these videos. We are going online. What about settlements? Is that going online as well?
It is, yes, yeah. We do use e-conveyancing.
That sounds fancy.
It prevents all parties involved having to actually attend a settlement in a CBD.
Because at this stage, you have a person you have people from all sides, so you have
all sides.
So you have someone representing the seller's settlement, the buyers, and the bank.
Yeah,
and bank as well?
There may be a discharging bank, there may be a new mortgage as well.
So you're having a party, are you?
Yeah.
So the Friday settlements are the best ones. They happen a bit longer, but they do happen.
Yeah.
So with electronic, all of this, all the parties come together online.
Online, yes, yeah.
So what does that mean? Faster settlements?
It is much faster. There's less room for human error.
Okay. Well, I guess it depends on the typing in, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The transaction of the funds is instant. So, for example, if you're selling a property and you're receiving
Oh, yeah, whether you need,
funds.
that's right, you need the proceeds of a sale to
Yes.
as a deposit for the next one.
Maybe.
That can be done almost instantly.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's all pretty much instant. It just depends on what time it actually takes place. It can actually go through same day or at the very latest the following day.
Okay,
So
and
it's
now we're
very
talking about
quick.
calendar days or working days? Calendar days.
I'm not actually seeing any funds come through on a weekend, so
Okay, all right.
they've
Even though
always
it's
actually
electronic,
gone
there's
through.
no one in there, just doing
Well, everyone
the
I've done, it happens straight away.
All
We've
right,
got the
good.
same day,
Okay,
so
cool. And is that now common to use or e-conveyancing, or is it?
it
is
is becoming more common.
Yeah. Do we have a choice as a buyer? Do I have a choice?
You do, yeah. At the moment, there is a choice. You
Okay.
can either do it manually or electronically.
But why would I choose one over the
One
other?
over the other. If you're a buyer, at least you know it's peace of mind. You know that everybody's going to attend. It's definitely going to settle when we say it's going to settle. There can't be any chances of somebody turning up late, for example.
Oh,
it happens
right, okay. Yeah,
electronically.
okay.
The title deeds automatically go into your name instantly. So
So
there's
all
less.
the names, all the signature, all that has been done before.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So all the checks. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean checks, not the checks,
Yeah.
not the money checks, the checking.
Yeah.
And is it Pixar? Is that what? Now I hear the word Pixar. Is that something
Yeah.
that's more industry specific, or?
PEXA is just the platform as to what we actually log on to do the settlements.
So there's only one platform. They're all using the same one.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So you go into PEXA, you create a workspace for that particular
Okay.
settlement, and then invite people who are involved with that settlement.
Oh,
on
right,
that
okay.
workspace.
So using Pexar to do your e-conveyancing.
That's right.
I hope
yes.
you guys understand that. But that's the future, isn't it? I mean,
That
there'll be a
is.
time where everything will be done online.
Most probably, yes.
By robot, everything done by robot. Okay, cool. Rebecca, thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
We've been talking about doing it for quite a few weeks, and I really, really appreciate your time. It is a nice Friday today, so I hope, I wish you a really nice weekend.
Yeah,
you
you
two
too.
guys. Remember, settlement is the last stage of your purchase. It's a very important one. You want to make sure that you appoint the right settlement agent, that you do everything in your control to get there on time to assure a smooth settlement. Myself as a finance broker, I will be along you as well to make sure that the finance side is right as well, and I'm making sure the right amount is in the right place at the right time. That's really what's important. I'll just quickly about that. Funds need to clear, 3 days before?
If you're transferring funds into
Yeah.
another account, I would give it 3 working days to
3
clear.
working days. Okay,
Yeah.
remember, 3 working days is when you want your funds to clear. 3 working days is how much leeway you have if you miss the settlement.
That's
So 3 is
right.
the magic number.
Yeah.
Cool. Rebecca, thank you very much for your time. Now, if they want to get in touch with you, just also want to give us, I will actually write down the details. Rebecca works for
Yeah.
D'Angelo Legal.
Yeah.
You just want to say, how do they get in touch?
You can give me a call. The number's 9381-1147, or just have a look on our website.
And that's what, D'Angelo?
D'Angelo Legal, based in West Perth.
Yeah, but the URL is d'angelo.com.au or d'angelolegal.com.au?
DangeloLegal.com.au.
That's all right. I'll put all that information down there. Guys, thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy that. If you've got any ideas for any subject or questions that you want me to answer, either myself or with an expert guest, let me know. Everyone, have a great weekend. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.